Insider.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Speedrun Insider. I'm your host CJitsallGewd, and this week I have a very special guest. He's a banjo scientist for Kazooie and Tooie. He's tasked Sonic the Hedgehog for the Master System. And he's coincidentally Australian. He's my friend and yours. He's the 8BitBeast. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm living the dream one mildly rainy day at a time.
Not like sunny Australia then.
Not like sunny Australia, no. We're going into the rainy season here in my neck of the woods, and I'm not looking forward to it.
No, more time for speedrunning.
Have more time for speedrunning. I gave you a 10-cent intro before, but why don't you tell the people who you really are and what you really do?
Yeah, so pretty much what you said. I mean, most people will know me as a Tazza, though I did have a RTA career that lasted a little while before that. My main game is Banjo-Kazooie. I do a lot of Sega Master System stuff, but those games are a lot less well known, so I think most people would know me for Banjo. And also, I did Crash Bandicoot Tazzas, Crash Bandicoot 3. So I think a few people might know me for that as well. But yeah, I just drift from game to game and find glitches, make Tazzas. It's pretty enjoyable.
There you go. The man with no game to call his own. He just wanders from game to game. Your short-lived RTA career made me chuckle, but it does actually bring me to my first question. When and how did you discover speedrunning? What was your gateway into the hobby?
Yeah, so it was many years ago now, so it's a little bit fuzzy, but I always I know a lot of people say this, but I always sort of did speedrunning before I knew it was a thing. Like, I would play Sonic the Hedgehog on the Master System over and over and over again. When I was a little kid, I thought, well, how many times can I finish this game in a day? And then when I grew up a bit more, I thought, how quickly can I finish this game? And I still have like an old VHS tape of a Sonic run that was like probably 20 minutes or something on PAL as well. So that's a whole nother can of worms. Same thing with Banjo-Kazooie. So I would play through Banjo-Kazooie and try and 100% it and then just look at the game time at the end. So I think I had a time of around like 3 hours or something back in the mid-early 2000s. But yeah, I found out about it through Speed Demos Archive. And me and my brother used to go to the library and they had an internet connection. You could download like 100 megabytes of files every time you went or something like that. So we would download one part at a time of the Pokemon Gold speedrun. So that was probably my first formal introduction. I watched a bunch of Master System stuff as well. But where it really took off was when my brother came down and showed me C-Fox's AGDQ run of Donkey Kong 64, which was the famous run that got fake key. It was like 2013, I think, something like that. But yeah, we'd never seen Rareware speedruns before. Like, we hadn't seen any N64 runs. And then C-Fox was pulling out all these crazy tricks like moon kicks and swim through vertical walls and like funky weapons glitch and stuff like that. And we thought that it was mind-blowing because up until then, all the speedruns that we'd seen had used stuff that we already knew about or had basically been glitchless. But this was like, wow, you can actually find new glitches in games like Donkey Kong 64, and there is more to do here. So yeah, we basically spent that night doing moon kicks everywhere, replicating the any percent run as best we could on PAL. And yeah, it took off from there. So I did a few runs of DK64 and eventually moved on to Banjo-Kazooie speedruns after a few years.
So I'm hearing from you, this feeling of like, wow, there are still tricks to be discovered in this older game. Is it that same motivation that kind of drove you into looking for tricks yourself and tassing, or was there some other motivation behind that?
That's a great question. So I was always into the technical side of things. We had a Master System emulator called Mecha or Mika, depending how you want to pronounce it. And it basically, when you opened up the game, it opened up the entirety of the RAM. So when I was maybe like 10 years old, I used to just type random values into the RAM and see what would happen to the game. So I eventually found like lives and the map data and all that stuff and funky stuff you could do. So that was probably the first technical stuff. And then we were very into ROM hacking. So I used to hack like Sonic 2 ROMs and Pokemon ROMs. And then the Tazzing came from that, I suppose. I don't really remember where I first found out about Tazzing. It was probably Mario 64. I remember getting Gens, the emulator, so that would run Genesis games, and BizHawk, and making. I think the first game I ever tazzed was Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine. Yeah.
I have played that game, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. And like it was awful. I did maybe like 2 levels and they were really suboptimal. But I remember getting really excited because I could get the bean to the bottom of the map and then just keep hitting the bean turn button and like make it turn there for about, I don't know, 5 minutes or something without it hitting the ground. So I thought that was pretty wild. Yeah. And like, yeah, we weren't like I wasn't good at tazzing. And when we were using BizHawk at that time, I didn't know how to like actually save the Taz. So every Taz that I wanted to do, I had to do in like one sitting, make it in one day.
Mm-hmm.
So they weren't very good. But yeah, if you scroll back through my YouTube channel to like 6 or 7 years ago, there's a bunch of Taz's of Master System games that are just really bad. Like really, really bad. Rather than hitting start on the like game title screen on the optimal frame, I used to just hold the auto fire button and mash the start button. So there was like a 50% chance that I lost a frame there. And then like the gameplay was just awful. So yeah. But it was good fun. Mm.
So we've sort of established like where these two things come from, right? Like you're interested in speedrunning kind of as like just as because you have to beat the game as fast as possible, right? It's a way that you're enjoying the game that you've played, probably played so much that you could recite it backwards and forwards, and you're getting new enjoyment out of it by trying to beat it as fast as possible or as many times as a day, vis-a-vis Sonic the Hedgehog. And then your baseline for testing is that you'd go into the RAM and find random things, right? Which is even more than like I would do with my old Tandy 1000, my 2002 swag piece. But
From
I guess
1984.
from 1984, yes. And so I guess what I'm curious is like, did the RTA stuff come first, or did the task stuff come first? Like, what did you pursue first, and to what extent and to what height did you reach with it?
Yeah, so this what you're saying there leads into what I did RTA pretty well. So all the tazzing stuff I was describing happened would have been 2011, 2012, all those really, really bad Tazzes. And that was before I'd picked up anything RTA, apart from just trying to play through a few things quickly, casually.
Mm-hmm.
So my brother picked up RTA before I did. He used to speedrun Donkey Kong 64, and he actually had the world record for a while.
Oh, really?
His name's Isotage, and he's does like a lot of game science now, not so much tazzing or speedrunning.
I know the name.
Yeah, well, that's good. Yeah, so he had the world record in Donkey Kong 64. So that sort of introduced me to the idea of what speedrunning actually looks like, because it looks like him coming to see me every few weekends and saying, "Oh, I got this new PB." So I saw like the progression of what doing a speedrun looked like, and he taught me it. And I think I had a Donkey Kong 64 run on the leaderboards. It was really, really bad. But the first thing that people would actually know me for, like in a wide sense, would be Banjo-Kazooie. So me and Isotage saw on the leaderboards in Banjo, they had 100%, which everyone was running, and they had any percent, which not many people are running. And a guy called JC Tomo had the world record. At that point, it was like a 119.52. And then we weren't good enough to match that any percent run, but we saw that there was a category called Sandcastle percent, which is basically it's any percent, but you're allowed to use cheats to open the levels rather than opening them with chickies. Yeah, so we saw that. I think at the time there was either like no runs on the leaderboard, or they'd just taken Jack's any percent run and called it Sandcastle percent and put it on there as a placeholder. We thought there's actually potential here, and it was really exciting because, I mean, we were always really sciencey and less interested in, like, I've always been less interested in what my hands can do and more interested in what my brain can do. So I was interested in routing Sandcastle percent rather than, getting really good at 100%. So yeah, I routed that with Isotage, and we figured out Like, it was really cool looking at what had been done for any percent and then figuring out how that could be adapted to Sandcastle percent. And then, yeah, at some point, me and Isotage had like this battle to get the Sandcastle percent time really low. I think he ended up with like a 116 and I was really far behind him. But then I caught up and I got it pretty low down near like a 112 or something like that.
Mm.
Yeah, but we were like really bad at it too because Jack came back and he was like, "Oh, this category is cool. I might try it." And he did like one run of Sandcastle percent and got a 108, whereas I had like a 112. So yeah, I had a long way to go. And at that point, I thought, well, I've actually got to get good at this game. So I looked at his any percent run, the 119.52, and I started like really heavily grinding to try and beat that. I think I got like a 119.48 or something like that. I'd beaten him by about 4 seconds. And I thought, cool, I'm finally good at Banjo. And then he came back, he did one run and he got like a 115. So yeah, I had a long way to go still. But eventually that cycle sort of continued. So he'd beat my run. I would get all inspired. I would grind more and more and more. I would learn what I was doing wrong and come back and beat his time. And it went on like that for a while. And eventually I got to the point where I thought I could consistently keep up with Jack. Like, he was probably still a bit better, but because I was playing more often, I was able to snag the world record back from him and keep it for more than like a day. Anyway, so yeah, that went on for a little while. And then I thought, I'm finally good at BK. And then Stivity Bobo started running any percent and he beat my time by like 2 or 3 minutes again. So yeah.
Right.
So that went on for a long time. And eventually it died down. Like, at one point I had the any percent world record for like a few months. And I think at that point it was in like the 112s. Like, I had it for a really long time. And yeah, that was where classic any percent sort of ended and where the new stuff kind of started. It's really hard looking back on the 119.52 that Jack had all those years ago because we haven't really found that much new stuff since then. But now it's down at like a 101 that Asmi has.
Yeah, he just yesterday got like a 1 hour, like 52 seconds or something yesterday.
Oh, really? I haven't seen that yet.
I hope I'm right, and I hope that we're going to prove that I'm right on the air.
Just edit yourself out if if not. So I've just pulled up my YouTube account and looked back at videos from 2015. So I'm basically trying to piece together what my glitch hunting career looked like, because I suppose that's the main thing that underpins everything. So it looks like the first glitch that I ever posted on my YouTube channel, apart from like the really old Tazes, which were basically glitchless, is a glitch where I got stuck inside a tree in Crash Twinsanity. So not useful at all, but there you go. I think the thing that had happened is my brother Isotage had bought me a capture card. So I was kind of excited and like capturing stuff from it. And then there's a few other PS2 glitches on the channel, like one from Tasmania, one from a Spyro game on PS2. So basically, I wasn't that good at finding glitches. Then in November 2015, I decided that I would pick up like actual Tazzing properly. And it looks like this was even before I picked up any of the Banjo-Kazooie speedrunning stuff. But I made a Taz of a game called Ys 3. Well, it's spelled YS. And it's like an action RPG thing. You grind and you level up. But yeah, I didn't find any glitches there. So the Taz was pretty much just me running to the end of the game. There was one glitch that I used to get to maximum level instantly, but that was already known, so I didn't find it.
Mm-hmm.
So after, that Taz was pretty vanilla, but it had really good music, so it was a fun game.
There you go.
After that, I actually start finding glitches. So there's a few like little stupid glitches in DK64. And then at that point, I actually started looking for glitches in Banjo-Kazooie, like actively seeking them rather than them just happening to me. So there was one glitch where like you could answer a Furnace Fun question during a cauldron cutscene, which was kind of weird. It didn't have any use. There was another one. I had this theory in Banjo-Kazooie that you might be able to get to a later level if you did the bottles bonus puzzle to watch Banjo in Rusty Bucket Bay, and then if you could desync the puzzle to get him to walk out of the room, you'd be able to get into Rusty Bucket Bay. So yeah, that was like, it is still the holy grail of like Banjo glitches on N64 is to get to later levels earlier. Like if you could desync the demo like on Xbox. So yeah, I found out that if you spawn the stop and swap egg in Rusty Bucket Bay, then Banjo collects it during the puzzle, like the bottles bonus puzzles that you do in Banjo's house. He collects it during there, and it sort of desyncs it because it causes so much lag with all the sparkles from the eggs and stuff when he collects it. But yeah. Anyway, there are a few other weird little glitches in Banjo-Kazooie. But then first useful glitch that I found, I'm just scrolling up to make sure that I've got this right. Yeah, so I'd been like running any% and Sandcastle percent for a little while, and we'd gotten it down to like a 112 or something like that. Eventually, I started looking back into a glitch called Treasure Trove Cove Early. And so somebody called Chronicies had already found this glitch, Treasure Trove Cove Early, but she thought that it was a bug to do with the emulator that she was using. So we basically thought that it was impossible and we forgot all about it. I ended up finding out a little bit more about how lag works in Banjo-Kazooie. And what I found out is that if you lag the game, so if you have a single lag frame, Banjo speeds up during that frame to compensate. Now, in a game like Donkey Kong 64, the amount that you can speed up Donkey Kong by is unlimited. Like you can just go as fast as you want in one frame if you cause enough lag. But in Banjo-Kazooie, it's capped. So like if you have one lag frame, Banjo speeds up to like 150% of his usual speed. But if you get two lag frames, then he doesn't speed up to 200%. He just stays at 150%. So if you get two lag frames next to each other, you actually start losing time. Yeah, so there's a limit to how much you can speed up with lag in Banjo-Kazooie. But I found out that lag was the trick to getting this Treasure Trove Cove Early glitch to work. So I figured out that you could poop eggs to cause lag. And if you poop eggs and have the camera pointing the right way in Treasure Trove Cove lobby, then you can just jump through the cannon in that lobby, get out of bounds, and swim to Treasure Trove Cove. So while it wasn't a new glitch, I had basically found out how to do it on console, which we thought was previously impossible. And so that saved like about 1.5 minutes on any% because it saves 2 jiggies from opening Treasure Trove Cove.
Right.
So yeah, that was the first actually big thing that I found in Banjo-Kazooie.
Yeah, that's a really nutty one. It's like I remember seeing that for the first time and thinking that of all the other things that I had seen from, because I normally watched 100%. I think a lot of people were like me in that regard, and that they mainly watched 100%. But when I started watching any percent, or I guess that was one of the tricks that got implemented at some point or maybe someone was trying to do it, and it was very it felt very like crazy compared to everything else. I mean, you have like the Freeze Easy Peak early stuff too, which is kind of like that out of bounds thing, but the swimming thing always got to me. It's like, wait, there's water under there? You can swim? Like, why would there be water under there? That didn't make any sense to me. It's a glass bottom pool, I guess. That little bit of water. You were gonna say something, I rudely cut you off.
Oh no, I don't think you did. Yeah, so I mean, it saved like 1.5 minutes on any%. So I think that was the point where any% went from like the old any%, you know, the 119s and the 115s and the 114s, to kind of like the new any%, so like the 112s and below. And I was pretty happy with it because I think it's the first thing that I found that actually saved time in an RTA speedrun, which is really exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I went through like a big phase of finding a lot of glitches, but all the glitches that were finding were just TAS only. So they weren't useful for speedruns, which was really frustrating to me. So it was around that time where I did a tool assisted speedrun of Sonic the Hedgehog, and nobody had So Sonic the Hedgehog, the 8-bit version, came out on Master System and Game Gear. Game Gear being the handheld version, and they're almost identical. But all the attention had gone to Game Gear because, I suppose, because it was more popular in North America, the Game Gear, whereas the Master System, Sonic the Hedgehog was a really rare game. So that's my reasoning, I think, as to why they did Game Gear. But I decided to pick up the Master System version. And I'd always held the Game Gear Taz in really high regard. I thought that it was amazing and that I would never be that good or never be that smart to be able to match it or beat it. So I thought I won't try Game Gear. I'll pick up the Master System version. During the Master System version, I ended up finding a glitch in Labyrinth Zone 2, where in that game you can build a lot of speed up towards the left. It's just due to a way how acceleration works. Kind of like negative, like how you can build up speed backwards in Mario 64. Kind of like that concept, but you go to the left. So anyway, I found out that if you have really precise movement, you can build up enough speed to the left in Labyrinth 2 to go off the left side of the screen. And you come out on the right side of the screen, which is the end of the level. So yeah, that saved like a minute in the Master System Taz, which is really exciting. But I'm a little bit frustrated at myself because I was almost there with the glitch, but I wasn't quite smart enough to get it to the end. So I kind of posted that glitch and I'm like, oh, I think this is theoretically possible. I posted it on Taz videos. And then like a guy called TNT helped me out. TNT is a Sonic Tazzer. And yeah, they basically got the final piece of the puzzle working for me. So I was really excited. It was really exciting that I found something massive in that game, but it was also like a little bit frustrating that I had to just stick with it for longer and get it, like, figure it out on my own.
Like reveal the whole thing at once. Yeah.
Yeah. But like I still really appreciate TNT for helping me because that little snippet of what they did helped me understand the game a lot more. And it wasn't so much that that person TNT knew a lot about Sonic 1 Master System. They just knew more about Tazzing at the time than I did, like what to look for in memory to get glitches like that to work. So yeah, I still had a lot to learn.
Well, I really wanted to ask, and I was looking for a place to jump in. You know, I always hear people. I've talked with so many glitch hunters for so many videos, and just people at JDQ that have done glitch hunting and tasking. What is the process by which you hunt for a glitch? Because I would just go into a level and be like, "There's no glitches here," right? That's me. That's me and my simple brain. What is the process that you take when you're looking for a glitch or you're trying to hunt for something? Like where do you even start?
So there's maybe like 2 or 3 or 4 different approaches you could take. So the first approach would be to take glitches that you already know about and see how they apply to different areas of the game. So this Sonic 1, for example, there was a glitch which gave you a lot of speed to the left. And I knew that in the Genesis Sonic games, if you get off the left side of the screen, you zip over to the right. So I sort of thought, well, maybe I can take this glitch, find a level where it will be reasonable to do this, and then try and get off the left side of the screen. That's the process for that one. There are other types of glitches, which is like putting games into situations that it doesn't expect to be in. So, for example, in Banjo-Kazooie, there's this glitch that I found, which was cauldron cutscene overlapping. And basically what happens is when you trigger one cauldron in that game, it shows you a cutscene of the other cauldron, like on the other side of the pair. And I knew that if you interrupt cutscenes in the right way, just from playing around, like hacking the game during cutscenes, I knew that that had the potential to do some funky stuff with Banjo. So I thought, well, I wonder what happens if I trigger a cauldron cutscene and before it starts, I quickly trigger another cauldron cutscene. So it's sort of just like putting the game into a situation that's kind of weird. And it turns out what happens if you do that, and you can do that as well, because the blue cauldron in the FP lobby is right above the pink cauldron. If you get out of bounds, you can trigger the blue cauldron and then fall down and trigger the pink cauldron before the blue cauldron cutscene starts. Anyway, if you do that, what actually happens is Banjo, rather than watching the cutscene, Banjo gets warped directly to the map that the cutscene is in. So he kind of ends up out the front of Rusty Bucket Bay, nowhere near the cauldron. It's really weird. And that'll actually be because I've got a showcase that I'm doing at Speed Doxathon next weekend. I put that glitch in the showcase, so should be very exciting.
I'm excited.
Yeah. So yeah, there's just stuff like that. Like usually it's like doing two things at once that the game might not expect to be overlapping. And Pan and Coic has a good video on it.
Okay.
So there was two methods. So applying stuff that you know and then overlapping things. I would say the third method is having something accidentally happen to you and then trying to figure out what that thing was. So a good example is bit clips in Banjo, which is like the new super big tech. And so a guy called Falcon X Falcon, basically he left his controller calibrated so that the joystick was holding slightly down, and then he sort of walked off from the game. And it just so happens that when Banjo does that, going through into a certain area of the game, he happens to fall through the floor. So yeah, Falcon found that completely on accident. But then like I took to it and sort of thought, what's actually going on here? And that's how honestly most glitches get found. It's just someone does it on accident. Yeah, pretty much. Then so that was three methods I talked about. I would say the fourth method would be you basically tazzing, and you would try and input combinations of buttons that would not be realistic for a human to do. So you try pressing like left and right at the same time on the D-pad. Or you try like rocking back and forth really, really quickly. So if you think of like Wind Waker when you're swimming, and you rock back and forth on the joystick and you build up a lot of speed like that. And Crash Bandicoot, when I made that Taz, I was trying to do some play around in the tiny fight. So I thought, I wonder if Crash will move in a funny way if I start rocking the analog stick back and forth into each corner. And so I started doing that, and I was like, oh, this will be funny. And then before I knew it, Crash was building up a whole bunch of negative speed. And it led to a glitch called zip zagging, where basically you just jump in place, rock the analog stick back and forth, and Crash just builds up heaps of negative speed. Once you have as much speed as you want, you basically hold. So if you want to go forwards, you hold backwards. You hold the opposite direction you want to go. And Crash just like flies off in that direction, which is insane to see. Yeah. Yeah. And it all came from just playing around in the tiny fight, just trying to make it more entertaining. Yeah. So it's that glitch zigzagging. It's basically, if you've seen Super Swing in the Wind Waker, it's that. So that cut any percent down from like 20 minutes to about 5 minutes, because we could clip through the gates in the main area of Crash 3. And it cuts Crash 1 down from like 40 minutes to about 25 minutes. You can't actually skip any levels, but because you can fly through the levels so fast, yeah, it's pretty interesting. But it's funny when you see it, but it's not very entertaining to watch for like 25 minutes. Yeah.
It's just Crash getting yeeted into space constantly. Honestly, I always wanted something I always wanted is like these crazy glitches, right? Right, it's like, oh yeah, Mario's just like wahooing backwards. It's like instead of like his like Yahoo, yeah, instead of it was like that, just have someone screaming because they're just being flung backwards at infinite speed or whatever. Like, just like, what would Crash actually be saying if he was getting thrown across the map? Right? So that's me and my dumb things that I think about.
Have you seen, I'm just trying to find it at the moment. Have you seen the like something about
Yes,
Speedrun animated? Yep.
Those videos are brilliant. My favorite is the one with Breath of the Wild, where it's just
Yep.
Link blowing himself up, getting thrown into space, and then him like rolling into, just constantly rolling into shrines. It's like, yep, that's pretty damn accurate. Really funny too.
Mm. And it's
So,
really good because it makes speedrunning, like it points out speedrunning to apparently 31 million viewers, which is crazy for that
yeah,
Breath of the Wild one.
it's a from a content perspective, it's very it's approachable because it's a funny little illustration and Link is doing funny things, right?
Mm.
It's not requiring anything of the viewer to understand anything. It's like, this is the speedrun. And whether or not they believe everything that they're seeing verbatim or not, because it's in animated form, they're like, yes, this is a funny video, right? Then it's like,
Mm.
so like the average person can just enjoy it at face value. But if anyone's actually interested, it's like, no, this is based on the speedrun. This is what they do in the speedrun. It's punched up, of course, but this is what they do in the speedrun. So if you're actually interested in seeing the game shattered, you can check it out. This is the link. And I think that most of the mainstream speedrun content that gets like popular, like sort of those videos specifically, I've seen those on the front page of Reddit, and like Summoning Salt do a great job of just informing people that speedrunning exists.
Oh, yeah. Funny you mentioned Summoning Soul. I really want to figure out how that. Did you see the Contra video that he put up yesterday?
I watched most of it. Yes, I did.
I really want to figure out how that level end glitch works.
You should do it.
Yeah. So you're seeing it happen in the process. So like something like that will happen. And then I'll just go like, oh, how does this work? And try and replicate it. But considering Aloysia already looked at the code and stuff, I doubt I'd be able to figure it out. But you never know. Maybe.
You never know. I mean, sometimes it's just different sets of eyes, right? Like someone can look at for something for so long they don't see it anymore.
And yeah, different people have different skill sets. So I'm more like I'm less technical than a lot of the really good Tazers. So I won't so much look at the code. I'll look at what is happening in the glitch and I'll try and replicate the movements that led to that glitch and then try and understand what's causing it. So yeah, some people will just read the code of the game. And I guess that's another way you could look for glitches is to read the code and figure out like see errors in the code just from reading it. But that's pretty complicated.
That's pretty complicated.
Mm.
I can barely read game shark codes.
Yeah, there was another glitch like that. I think it was like the third method I mentioned or something was somebody does a glitch on accident and then you have to figure out how it works. There was another glitch like that that happened in Sonic the Hedgehog Master System. What was happening was people were just going through the levels normally, walking. And then all of a sudden, Sonic would just like shoot off to the left with incredibly high speed. Kind of like he'd hit a spring. And
Right.
yeah, that was just weird. And I ended up getting this folder of, well, this notepad document of links to different videos. And I had like, I think 10 different links to Twitch and YouTube videos of people having this glitch happen to them in different spots. And like we had no idea what was causing it. And it wasn't always that you'd shoot off to the left. You'd sometimes, like in Bridge Zone in that game, there's these bridges that have falling bridge pieces that you got to run across. And sometimes people were just running across the bridges and Sonic would shoot up into the air at a really high speed. Like, cool. So, yeah, I had these 10 YouTube Twitch links and I had no idea what was causing it. And eventually I just basically did what the people were doing in the game over and over and over again, like walking across these falling bridge pieces until it happened to me. But I had it on emulator in like basically a TAS file so I could look at the code and see what was happening. Yeah, but there was no way that I could have figured out how that glitch had worked if it wasn't for, again, my brother Isotage helping me out. Actually, it was a team of like 4 different people. I don't remember everyone's name, but I link them at the bottom of the Sonic Taz, which is also in Speed Doxathon coming up. But yeah, we figured out, and it was like some stupid little thing in the code that had to do with the, like, you can get a lag frame in the game, which is like, yeah, cool. So the game runs at 60 frames a second and you get 1 frame of lag.
Mm-hmm.
This glitch is triggered by having an amount of lag that is not just in terms of frames, but the actual amount of lag that you have is really, really precise, down to about 1/20,000th of a frame. So, yeah, it's wild.
So, so what you're saying is it's not RTA viable. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's not. Well, people have got to accidentally RTA it. Not consistently, no.
This
Yeah.
only perpetuates the problem that you have, the public image problem, that you only find TAS-only stuff.
Exactly. So, yeah, I made that TAS. I've actually made, I think, I've made heaps of different categories, but Sonic 1 any% Master System, I've made 2 TASs of, and the new one uses all this stuff. But yeah, back onto that about only finding TAS-only stuff. There was another trick called Clanker's Cavern Early. It's a similar story to what happened with TNT. So I was walking in front of Clanker's Cavern, looking at this ledge, and basically to clip on a ledge in Banjo, 2 things need to happen. You need to be able to get hooked on the ledge and build up a lot of speed downwards. So if you're familiar with Banjo, think about like 640 note door skip. Banjo hooks on a ledge and falls through it, or like any ledge clip, so like spring clip, dog skip. So you need to get hooked on the ledge and build up speed. And then there's another condition that needs to be satisfied, is that the ledge needs to be at the right height where you can actually fall through it. Mm-hmm. So for example, any like tiny little steps in the game are at the right height where you could fall through it, but they're not tall enough for you to get hooked on it and build up speed. And then, for example, the stairs in front of Mad Monster Mansion, you can get hooked on them and build up speed, but they're not the right like height for you to be able to fall through the MMM stairs. So yeah. Anyway, so I realized this Clanker's Cavern entrance satisfied both of those conditions, and I'd almost been able to clip on it. So then, typical me, I was like, "Oh yeah, Isotage, can you figure out how this works for me?" And then he did. Yeah. That's one that I sort of found, but it was really Isotage did like 90% of the work for Clanker's Early.
It sounds like I should be interviewing Isotage. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
Hey, so we did this interview with your brother, and he said you found all the things that he found. So can you tell me how you found them?
Well, okay, this is true leading up to everything before about 2017. After that, I do end up actually finding some glitches myself.
I'm proud of you. I'm happy you burst on through to the other side.
Yeah, it's a struggle. But like, I mean, of course, there were a few games, like some Alex Kidd games on Master System. I did find some glitches completely by myself on those. And like the Crash Bandicoot zip-zagging, I found all that by myself. But I really, for the longest time, I just wished that I had found something in Banjo-Kazooie that was save time in the speedrun that I completely found by myself. And that never really happened, apart from Treasure Trove Cove Early, but that was basically Chronic who found that first.
Right.
So anyway, another TAS-only trick that I found in Banjo-Kazooie was Mad Monster Mansion Early. So you'd like jump off the roof, fall into the step, and that thing that I said before about how the step is too tall for you to clip through. Basically, you get around that problem by falling onto the step from above. So you kind of hit the top of the step rather than the bottom where you would usually be. Anyway, so that was TAS only. Then, I found Furnace Fun Skip. You would jump up onto the corner of a tile from the outside on Furnace Fun and get hooked on it. And you'll never believe this, but I did this again. So I almost figured out the glitch, and then I passed it off to somebody else to figure out. Yeah.
It's a running gag!
It is. I got to stop doing that. But yeah, I passed it on to Hyper Resonance and Captain Cole. So basically, I'd managed to get hooked on the square and jump up so that I was high enough that I was kind of above the board. We'll see this next week in Speed Doxathon as well. And then, so I'd maybe got like I figured out the key to getting Furnace Fun Skip, but Hyper is the one who tads the whole thing and got the entire skip in one go. So yeah, he figured out. I'd say the credit there goes like 60-40 or 70-30. Like,
wait, are you
Hyper
the
wouldn't have
70?
got it if
Or are you the...
yeah, no, I'm the 70.
Oh,
Hyper wouldn't have
okay.
got it if I hadn't found the initial thing, and I probably would have got it if I had like kept at it. But like Hyper found some stuff about it that made it realistic to skip.
Right.
Like Hyper didn't just grind it out. He did find some more keys to getting it to work. So I'd say it's like 60-40 credit goes there. But anyway, there's another common theme. Taz only, and I passed it off to somebody else before it was finished.
My dad always said, "I'm bad, but I'm consistent." I think that I think that you meet the consistency part. It's like you consistently find things for sure.
Yeah, and like I found heaps of Taz only stuff in all sorts of different, like every game that I
Of
Taz,
course.
there's usually some stupid stuff, and there's a bunch of useless glitches that I find, just weird oddities. But yeah, anyway, I'll get on to the big glitch that is really important. So there's big clips in Banjo-Kazooie, or floating point clips, depending what you want to call them. So yeah, I was talking about this before. Falcon X Falcon had it accidentally happen to him in Tui, and then I sort of looked into it and tried to find out what's going on there. So the difference with this one is I actually did do it all by myself. So I figured out what was going on.
It's your enthusiasm for the bit that's really got me laughing now. It's not that it keeps happening. It's that you're leading into the punches at this point.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. So I got that working. Basically, what a bit clip is the floor is made up of a whole bunch of floor triangles, as a floor is in like any 3D game ever, pretty much. And at the edges where two triangles join together, on some of those edges, there are like tiny little gaps that Banjo can fall through. Very, very tiny. If people listening are familiar with the trick Nimpulk skip on the Furnace Fun board, where you have to get into the tiny gap and get into Talon Trot, big clips are 10,000 times thinner than that little gap for Nimpulk skip. So yeah, very precise. Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. So I figured out big clips. Oh, I didn't talk about 810 skip. I'll come back to that. Yeah, I figured out big clips, how they worked, and I got a few tricks with them. So I got click clock wood early with big clips. Basically just go to the top of click clock wood and fall through the top into the level. I got another method for Mad Monster Mansion early. And then at that point, we had basically figured out that like, any floor in the whole game you can clip through if you really want to, if you find a floor triangle in the right spot. So that was good. Yeah, but that again, it was Taz only. Yeah. Yeah. And until but big clips gave us another method to do 810 note door skip. But about, I don't know, a few months before I found bit clips, I found another method to do 810 note door skip, which involved like big barging off a cauldron and getting a lag frame and getting hooked on a pole and hitting the cauldron cut. It was all a mess. But I did find 810 skip. And that was probably like my proudest moment in like glitch hunting, finding 810 skip, because that cut any percent from like an hour and 5 minutes down to a Taz that was probably about 40 minutes or something like that. So it was,
I remember seeing
wild.
that video when it came out. That was wild. The 810 thing.
Yeah, so I was really, really proud of that. Yeah, but then big clips give us yet another method to do 810 skip. So we've actually got two ways to do it now. And big clips are a lot better than the big barge cauldron method by a long way. Yeah, but yeah, big clips could be basically used anywhere. And then, but I still had this issue. So I'd finally found some glitches by myself. I'd finally found MMM early, 810 skip, and bit clips by myself. But I hadn't found anything apart from TTC early, kind of, in Banjo-Kazooie that could be used RTA.
Right.
Until a guy called Ring Rush looked at Banjo-Tooie, and he used big clips there to skip the final door leading to Grunty. And he had some crazy setup with like camera turns and lines all over the screen and holding specific angles on the joystick. It was wild. But I thought, like, cool. he's done it in TUI RTA, like without using TAS stuff. So I got to it and I'm like, I want to do this in Kazooie. Now, it wasn't so much like I may not have been able to have the confidence to do it in Kazooie if it wasn't for seeing Ring Rush do it in TUI.
Mm-hmm.
But the methods, so like to do these bit clips, you need to get into a precise position. So you use camera setups, you use moves that have known distances that they travel, so like beak barges and bear punches. You use all that stuff, and you do it in an exact order, the same way every time, so that Banjo ends up in the exact same spot every time.
Right.
That's what goes on. So Ring Rush had done it in TUI, but when I came to do it in Kazooie, like the camera behaves differently, and the moves behave differently. So, for example, in TUI, you can pause buffer a bear punch and then a jump the frame after and get it every time. But in Kazooie, you actually have to hit B and then A on the next frame for it to work.
Okay.
In TUI, you can hold the camera, like you can hold the camera in a particular position and then do something with like the egg aiming scope to get Banjo to face, like to increment your angle in really precise amounts because you've got the whole range of the joystick to play with. And you can use lines on your screen to tell what joystick angle you're holding.
Right.
So you've got a lot of precision in TUI. Whereas Kazooie, you don't have any of those tools at your disposal. So basically what you've got to do is, you've got to do something which we've dubbed twirly whirlies, which is spinning your camera around.
Best name ever, by the way. Best name ever.
Yep. So you spin your camera around and you basically hold the joystick at full lock and you spin it around. When you do that, your facing angle updates by 3 degrees every frame. So rather than having this super fine precision like TUI has, when you do a twirly whirly, you only go up by 3 degrees every frame. So it's a lot more coarse, but it is predictable. And yeah, I basically figured out a combination of like twirly whirlies and beak barges and bear punches. And I was trying to get MMM early, so clip on the steps. I spent, I think it was like 3 weeks, and like I was working full time, so I didn't spend all those 3 weeks, but every weeknight and every weekend I was streaming trying to get MMM early, and I spent like 3 weeks trying to get a setup to work. And it eventually got MMM early, RTA. So yeah, saves like 3 minutes in any percent. And I was super happy because it was the first thing that I had I'd taken it through from start, finding the glitch, how it works, all the way to finish, people using it in RTA. And I had done the whole process by myself. So I was really, really happy with that one. And then we found I found Click Clockwood early setup as well, which I think people are still using unless there's a better one. But Ring Rush, me and Ring Rush had different approaches for it. Basically what I was doing is I was trying to get my angle to a really specific value, and then that angle sort of runs along the seam where all the gaps are, so you have heaps of shots at hitting the gap.
Right.
And then Ring Rush had a totally different method, whereas Ring Rush was trying to get as close to the seam as possible and then do really precise movements from that spot. So basically, I was getting Banjo to face a really specific direction and then roughly hitting the spot, whereas Ring Rush was roughly going up to the spot that he wanted and then doing precise stuff once he got there. So different approaches. But yeah, and since I found the original setups, yes, Ring Rush has come in and he's found setups that are faster. And I appreciate him doing that because I would never have had the patience to sit there and find those faster setups. And the faster setups are more difficult. But yeah, I was just really happy to have something that actually saves significant time RTA that I'd kind of developed from start to finish, even if Ring Rush has then taken it further since then to make it faster.
Right. Well, not only did you find something that saves time on your own, and not only did you kind of prove it, I mean, this is kind of a great narrative of you found stuff and you needed someone else, and then you found stuff and you needed someone else, and then you found stuff and it was TAS only. But now you found something and it was TAS only, then you found RTA setups, right? And then you save heaps of time, and it's fucking cool. Like, it's gotta feel cool that it's a cool trick. I mean, it's not like, oh, we actually increase our note count by from 80 to 85. It's like, no, dude, you're going into the level early.
Yeah, when you put it like that, it's good. It was very satisfying to find RTA setups that were that precise. It felt like, because Banjo was always really kind of second place to games like Ocarina of Time and SM64 that had like crazy science stuff. But it felt like we were doing crazy stuff that you would see in like Ocarina of Time with these RTA setups.
Mm-hmm.
Where they would, in Ocarina of Time, do like 7 side flips into this corner and then pull out your bow and hold right for 24 frames. And like, we're actually doing that in BK now, which is wild. Yeah. And it's even more wild in Tui because there's a difference between how those two games work. Banjo-Kazooie, it's harder to fall through the floor. You can get through the floor by just ground pounding through it. Or if you, like in a TAS only sense, if you're on PAL and you get a lag frame in the right spot, you can make it through the floor and then flutter out of bounds and get past a wall. But in general, in Banjo-Kazooie with big clips, you can fall through floors, but in an RTA setting, you cannot get past walls. But in Tui, it works differently in that if you get hooked into the ground, Banjo will fall through without you needing to ground pound. So in Tui, not only can you fall through floors with ground pounding, but in Tui, you can get past walls, which is like what Ring Rush did to get through Grunty's door in Tui and Witchy World. And I think once we develop bit clips more and more RTA science goes into it, I could see bit clips being used all over the place in Tui speedruns in like heaps of situations. So skipping Klungo fights, getting into the Dodgem Dome cars without going to the first and second round, getting into pretty much any level early you want in Tui you could do. And then like just tiny little other things that might save like 1 minute if you do a bit clip. And that's just RTA. Like the TAS potential would be incredible with bit clips in Tui. So yeah, there's good times ahead for Tui if the right people look at it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I love just hearing about this stuff. Like, oh, there's new stuff on the horizon, you know? There's a brighter dawn tomorrow, and it might be today. You know, I love hearing that stuff. It's great for speedrunning in general, and, you know, the task people and the glitch hunting people and the RTA setup people, you know, what would speedrunning be without them, you know, honestly.
And there's so many people that, even with just the Banjo stuff, we probably wouldn't be very far without Chronicies finding her original glitches. We wouldn't be very far without the emulator programmers making the emulators that I use, or Isotage making the script hawk, which is a tool that I use. And like the speedrunners speedrunning the game, which like I might not be looking at so many BK glitches if there weren't still that many people who were interested in BK. So there's just so many people that you can look at. Not to mention like Ring Rush, who was complimenting my bit clip stuff wonderfully. There's just so many people that they're all a piece of the puzzle getting it to work.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's a house of cards, right? It doesn't work without everyone else, kind of, in the foundation below. We've talked a lot about tassing and glitch hunting, and I do want to ask you something before we wrap up. I want to ask you a few things about your podcast, because you have a podcast.
I do have a
The
podcast.
Tool Assisted Podcast.
That's right.
Which I believe you can find wherever you find your favorite podcasts, but you can also find it on your YouTube page, The8BitBeast. And I want to ask you how this podcast came to be, and maybe promote yourself a little bit for the people listening at home.
Yeah, so I'd love to. One of the best places to find it, I have a playlist which just has like all the episodes in it on YouTube. But you can also just like on any podcast player type it in because it's on iTunes now. So you should be able to find it. At least I can find it on my podcast player on my phone. But yeah, basically what I was looking to do is there was a lot of people talking about speedrunning. And I wanted to contribute to that, but I felt like I didn't want to do the same things that a lot of people were doing because, to be honest, there are a lot of people in the world that could talk about speedrunning a lot better than I could talk about it. But I think my skill set is I have a technical side, which is tazzing, but I can also hopefully bring that to the level where it's not boring as heck to listen to. And we can like learn a bit more about the tazzers of people as people.
Right.
We can learn more about the tazzers as people, but we can also learn how the tricks work in a lot of detail. And nobody was talking about the technical side of things, I found. So there were one of the reasons why I started as well is that there were a lot of misconceptions going around. Like people didn't understand what tazzers were, and it's like a meme. People get comments on speedruns in general, but more
Yes.
particularly tool-assisted speedruns that are like, "Oh, you're just cheating. You're not doing anything special." Whereas when people make a Taz, more often than not, they're putting a lot more time and effort into it than some people will put into RTA speedruns.
Right.
Or at least the same. Like SM64 Tazers put as much time into learning about the game as the SM64 speedrunners might. Although for that game in particular, RTA probably does more. But for other games like less well-known games, if I make a Taz of that, usually I will either have the world record or I'll have put more time into it than the RTA community would have. So I think, yeah, people think that's just like a Taz button you can push and it makes a Taz of the game, but that's like not the case at all. Yeah.
You turn the task fountain on and the task comes out, right? That's how it works.
Yeah. But it's not like, I don't mean to be negative about it. Like, I think there are a lot of people who don't have those misconceptions and a lot of people who are really interested in it.
Mhm.
And like, I really just wanted it as a good place to meet people who are interested in tazzing and have a community that enjoys interesting conversations, like enjoys podcasts as much as I do, and also enjoys hearing about the technical side of things as well.
Yeah. I'll be honest, I have not listened to all of them all the way through, except for most of the most recent episode, which you did with Isotarge, which is how I didn't know he was your brother somehow. I'm ashamed. Tompa is a friend of Speed Docs. He was a tester for the Minish Cap, as well as Donkey Kong Country, which is why we have a Minish Cap video and a Donkey Kong Country video, almost specifically because Tompa was there to help. Super knowledgeable about the game, and also Ty Kevin, also another friend of the show, who has actually been on this show. So there you go. Great, two really interesting people that I personally recommend. If you're gonna check out his podcast, go listen to those 2 episodes. Listen to all the episodes, but listen to those 2 first.
And yeah, it's still evolving in a lot of ways. I think it's starting to get a bit more bite size. Like some of the earlier episodes were like 3 hours, and then now we're just going into more of like an overview, which is hopefully a bit more manageable. But like for sure, if there are games or Tazzers that you're interested in and there's an episode on it, like you're bound to get something out of it, even if it is like super long and technical.
Yeah,
But yeah.
it's so worth it. Honestly, tasking is really cool stuff. Yeah. So, what are your plans for the future? Obviously, more podcasts, more tasks. What do you see for yourself for the next, for the immediate future?
That is a fantastic question. Something I've been thinking about a bit lately and haven't had an answer on. I think I would like to do a lot more with the podcast, and I'd like to do a lot more like viewer and listener friendly content. So I'd really love to make videos explaining mainly banjo glitches, but all kinds of glitches. I'd still like to do some tazzing. I've signed up to something called Dream Team Contest, which is basically get a group of 3 or 4 tazzers, and you're given a game that you don't know ahead of time, and you've got like a month or 2 to tazz it. So I'll be doing my tazzing there. But I think if all goes to plan, what you should be seeing more of is more stuff like podcasts and more stuff like explaining glitches videos. But you
Mhm.
never know. Lots of different things could happen. I could end up getting addicted to another Taz game, and then maybe you'll see some random Master System game Taz next. Who knows?
I think a great video series would be Taz's Explained. There are a few. I know that Bismuth has a video series. Tomato Anus was on the show. He has a series which I really love, which is Speedrun Explained. I'd love to see something like that for Tassing and explaining some of the glitches. I think that'd be really great. Maybe you could do it with the Tasser, and there's your $1 million idea. Do it before someone else does.
I think that could be a really good idea. Well, that's sort of what I'm going for with like the individual glitches explained, which I've started making some videos, but the only one that I've really made is that 810 skip video. And that was more just that I found it and wanted to reveal it. But yeah, definitely. I think I would do better at explaining stuff that I'd already done.
Yeah, of course.
But there's definitely like a market for the other Tazes. And that's what I hope to achieve with the podcast as well. But obviously doing it in video form is a lot different to doing it in audio form.
Of course. Well, I want to thank you for being on today. If you want to know more from my guest, you can watch his speedruns. He streams often on Twitch, mostly doing some tasks and science stuff. He is the 8BitBeast. You can follow him on YouTube. The 8BitBeast. Is your Twitter the 8BitBeast as well?
Pretty sure it is. Yeah, out of everything, basically anything I do ends up on YouTube.
8BitBeast, you will find him. He is the host of the Tool Assisted Podcast. You can listen to that podcast wherever you find your favorite podcasts. It is on Apple, your favorite podcast player, and on YouTube. As he pointed out a minute ago, there is a playlist of all the episodes on YouTube. Highly recommend you listen to them. Give him some support, give him some love. You can look up all of the tasks and all of the crazy stuff that he's found for Banjo-Kazooie, Any%. The Any% scene is alive right now. You can go watch those runners doing those glitches. And, pay homage to all of 8-Bit's hard-earned twirly-whirly work. Great name, by the way.
Shout outs to Asmi as well, who's probably going to get sub-hour soon in Any%.
Yes, shout out to Asmi. Hopefully he'll be on the show in the future, and I really would like to have that guy on. Really nice guy. As my friend Penguin would say, solid to the earth, not salt of the earth. Shout out to Penguin. And that's going to do it for this week on Speedrun Insider. I've been CJitsallGewd. Please show some love and support to 8BitBeast, and I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.